Sorry, hit
No,
the record
all the
before I forgot.
one, yeah, all good. All the ones we got at the studio are terrible and cheap, but these I keep at home.
Right, right.
Let's see. Do you want me to do a backup recording?
Probably not a terrible
Okay.
idea.
All
I
right.
finally had to use a backup recording about 2 weeks ago where
Ooh.
my computer crashed in the middle. I lost the last 30 minutes because I had to switch to iPad. So
Oh man. Oh, there you go. There's the
allow
request.
recording. Okay.
And there we go. Yep,
But
done.
it worked out in the end, so that was nice. Yes.
Good, good, good. Mm.
um, as I said, there's of course no. You said you started the trip. How far did you get through the trip?
Not too far, maybe a little less than an hour. So like 45 minutes, somewhere
Okay,
around there.
that's a good
But he
sampler.
is firmly into his trip, you know. So yeah, that is wild, man. I
I
love it.
kind of prefer that one to Easy Rider, to be honest. It's a lot more fun than
Sure.
Easy Rider.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It is a lot of fun and it's just got a lot of style and it's cool.
Jack
Um,
Nicholson is present, by the way. He wrote the script.
he wrote it. I know. I can't believe that.
Well, that
I
was
mean,
his.
the cast is great. Bruce Dern and Peter Fonda and who
Susan
else?
Strasberg,
Susan
Dennis
Strasberg. Yeah,
Hopper.
yeah.
Yeah.
Dennis Hopper. That's the name that was escaping me.
Well,
Yeah, it's very cool.
the
And I'm a
other one I'll
Corman
just
fan anyway. Yeah,
yeah, I think it's my favorite Corman. So,
yeah,
see, that's the thing. Him and Mel Brooks, like, one, you're like, they're still alive, and two, but still, I'm gonna be like, it's gonna depress me when they die. It's like,
yeah, yeah. I
I mean,
know,
both
I
those guys
know.
are what, like 95 now. It's
Yeah,
wild. Yeah.
yeah. Let me look him. In fact, I was just talking about Roger Corman the other night with a friend of mine who's a film buff. Wow, Roger Corman born in 1926. So April 5th, 1926. So he is
97.
97. Holy crap. Um, but they all say the same thing about him. It's like he is such an elegant, well-read, respectful gentleman. And for a guy who just produces and directs such trash, but I think good trash.
Oh, fantastic
Um,
trash.
yeah, absolutely fantastic trash. But he's just such a guy, such a mensch, and has this terrific presence. And yeah, I'd love to meet him one day.
When Andrew, the guy from the last podcast we did, when he and I were
Hmm.
kids, we were making camcorder TV shows, and one of our characters was Corman Rogers, who was he'd show up on the interview shows, and he was just the dullest person in the world. He'd answer like usually in one word questions. He's wearing like a sweater vest, that sort of thing. And
Oh my God.
his films, we were like 12 years old at the time, but we realized we were like basically describing Andy Warhol films,
Yeah,
where
yeah.
you just film the wall for 10 hours and make that your film.
Sure,
So, yeah.
sure. Oh my God.
Before I do a
Hilarious.
proper start, the other one I sent you, that was Land Without Bread, which is a
I,
Louis.
I I watched a bit of that. Yeah,
Oh, you did see that?
I
Okay,
did.
so
Yeah. Mhm.
do you know the story on that one?
I read a little bit on Wikipedia and some of the IMDb information about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, really fascinating.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the main conceit is he went out and did proper documentary footage and then proceeded to write bullshit as all of the factual information. So,
right. As one does. Yes.
although
Yeah.
they apparently did kill a burro or something for it, so that's maybe not cool.
Read about that. Yeah, yeah. Apparently, other animals too that they killed just in the name of their art. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I guess
Very
that's
weird.
a Dada mindset that's probably better left behind.
Right.
Most Dada stuff cool, but that little bit maybe not so cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me give a 5 second pause and we will start it, I suppose.
Groovy.
Welcome to Time Enough Podcast. It's where we're going to go beyond, one step beyond today, possibly very psychedelically, with the sacred mushroom. This is Matt here, coming back. First time for One Step Beyond is from Roddenberry Entertainment's Mission Log. It's John Champion. Howdy.
Hey. Hey, good. I thought the sacred mushroom, I thought that was my nickname for this show. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Joining us from Roddenberry Entertainment's mission log is the sacred
The
mushroom
sacred
himself.
mushroom. Oh yeah, what have you gotten me into?
Yeah, I want to get in some weird nicknames. That sounds like fun.
Sure, why not? Why not?
um, as I'm on this little detour on a show that everyone's heard of but nobody's watched, it seems. Unless you're going to counter that, I don't know.
I honestly, I had never heard of this show, and I consider my, my knowledge of weird and esoteric TV and pop culture pretty good. I'm not a scholar by any means, but I watch a lot of stuff and will read up on a lot of stuff that is just sort of outside of, certainly stuff from before I was born. So if it's weird TV, I try to know it. And this show, I have to hand it to you. You presented me with a show that I had never heard of. And good for you picking this weird episode, a little scene episode of this weird show. So bravo to you.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna have to give the blame, the credit for that to Amazon, because I literally learned about it with you probably when I bought the Twilight Zone set. You may
Oh,
also
there you go.
like.
You may also like, yeah.
So
These fit together well like that.
and I would have bought it, except this show is public domain and the sets are poor quality, as most of the YouTube ones unfortunately aren't, including this one. And
Right,
spotty.
right.
It's apparently you cannot find a set of this that has like everything. So
Interesting. Huh.
yeah, which is one of the reasons I'm doing it right now. But yeah, it
Yeah.
started 6 months or 7 months before the Twilight Zone, so it just got the drop on it. But
Wow.
obviously does not have the iconic status. And
Yeah, interesting that this one came out before because it feels like the competitor show to the Twilight Zone. Because I've watched a little bit of, this episode today is very different in format, but I've watched some of the others, and it seems like somebody at the studio is like, quick, get us a thing to compete with the Twilight Zone. This is not that. And produced by MGM, who produced Twilight Zone anyway.
yeah, I guess they were just
Yeah,
feeling this vibe. It's kind of it's like the streaming thing where you'll have like some exec who's really into a certain thing, they leave, someone else comes in, and the popular show just gets axed because it's someone
right.
else's tastes now. So
Right, right. Well, and it also it speaks to another thing where, there are a lot of shows that come out at a certain time that feel similar to each other. And it's not necessarily because, executives are stealing the ideas from somebody, although that happens too. But certain ideas just sort of all happen at the same time anyway. Writers get influenced by similar things happening in the popular culture. They're reading the same books. And then it's not unlikely that, a dozen, half dozen writer producers oh, I have this idea for a show and it goes like this, and we're going to explore these kind of weird, mysterious ultra stories. And sure, Rod Serling can do it, and so apparently can what's his name, John Newland.
yeah. Of course
Yeah.
this one is supposed to be based on real life events, which is a
Mm-hmm.
major difference from the Twilight Zone. And I don't know,
Right.
it gives it that crystal Pepsi flavor, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
So
But it's nice. And I like, I assume, again, this episode was a little bit different, but I assume obviously there's a bit of artistic license taken with some of the other stories that they tell.
yeah, a few weeks ago we did the Navigator, and I'm sure they had no clue what actually happened on a 19th century merchant ship.
Exactly. But that was a
You
good
got
episode. That's one that I watched. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one I've been recommending to people, mostly because it looks good on YouTube. I'm not quite sure how that
It looks
episode
great.
ended up looking better than the rest, but
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
it
but
looks
that
great.
seems to have come from a source print where the sacred mushroom. Well, again, it almost doesn't matter with this one because of the weird kind of documentary vibe of it. It's
Right.
it's like finding some weird piece of treasure in the dumpster behind the studio.
Exactly. That's exactly it.
Let me do just a spot of the trivia. Not too much,
Yeah.
since we don't have, writers and actors for this one, but
Yeah.
original air date was January 24th, 1961. As with all One Step Beyond episodes, this one was directed by John Newland. It does have writing credits from the regular gang, the people who there's a trio of writer whose names I keep seeing, but I think that's just IMDb like robo assigning writers. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not
Yeah,
going to
it
get
could
into
be.
that. But yeah, this episode does break with One Step Beyond's dramatized anthology series format and is more of a documentary. Newland and his crew traveled to Mexico, ate some mushrooms, returned to California for another more controlled session, and put it on film. Though Newland cited this as the most popular episode of the series, it was generally left out of syndication runs and rarely broadcast. And yes, that is absolutely because of this episode's subject matter. In such a weird time and place for it, which I guess, well, maybe not place, but weird time. So we'll get into that a little more. But first, of course, Newland just this doesn't have a prologue so much as he just narrates over the whole thing. But I seem to find a good cutting point, and you can read this any way you want because, as I keep telling the guest, I don't think anyone will recognize a John Newland impression.
No, and actually, I think John Newland is a very good host. He's not as interesting as Rod Serling, but I think he's a very good host. But here we go, me not doing a John Newland impression. This member of the mushroom family, this fungus, is known for the moment only as X. It was discovered barely weeks ago, growing in a remote rainforest. Science has not yet given it a name, for science knows scarcely anything about it. But it is felt that X might have one remarkable quality, that it stimulates extrasensory perception, enabling the mind to become telepathic and clairvoyant. Now, that's a rather large claim. Is it true or false? The answer to that question took us on a unique and distant journey.
All right. A journey from Los Angeles to Mexico. I mean, I guess it takes a while. I mean,
Yeah, it does.
It could be more distance, I guess is my point. But yeah, sure, why not? I don't remember what part of Mexico they went to. If it was south, it was definitely a long journey. So
right, exactly.
How long does it take?
I mean, I've driven from here to Baja in like 3 hours.
Oh, okay, that's not bad. Oh, so San Diego is really close. I was thinking it was like 3 hours from San Diego. So,
oh no, San Diego is like right on. It takes the longest bit of the trip is to get to San Diego. Now coming back is terrible because crossing the border, coming back from Mexico, that will take you all day long. But yeah, it's a nice little trip, Yeah, and then I've taken many a cruise ship into parts of Mexico. But never really spent a huge amount of time in any one place. I'd like to. I kind of thought about one day if I felt like being a little more daring on a road trip, like drive to Mexicali and then drive to Mexico City and actually check out Mexico City.
See some pyramids, yeah.
Yeah, I want to do the whole thing. Yeah.
Visit the local shaman. I don't know.
But you have to take the extra side trip for that. That's what was interesting. Was they get to their one place, they have their guide, they go off. But even before we get to that, just from a technical standpoint, it was very interesting to me that there are a couple of moments in here where you hear the natural audio from them in their experience in this little village, but all the stuff in the lead up, they're in Mexico, and I think all of that was dubbed, and it's just a lot of footage of people standing, sometimes like a 3 or a 4 shot of just them standing there with the host. As the host, John Newland is explaining everything to you, and clearly shot on location, but all the audio is really clean. It was a little too clean. And I was just like, wow, this is a ton of footage with no cutaways for this to just be a bunch of ADR. But they did it. It was an odd choice.
Well, my note is just, this is back when live sound recording was hot garbage. Because there is a part where he's like, here, where he does say, here is the actual audio. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and you can really tell the difference. But it's kind of a commitment to go there, because you could have just done a bunch of cuts. You could have just and just do it with narration. But no, they committed to this idea of actually seeing the host and all these other people talking, and that's an awful lot of dubbing time.
Well,
Mhm.
yeah, put some production into your episodes, but I guess it
Yeah,
helps when the presenter is also the director.
yeah. You can do whatever he wants.
Kind
Yeah,
of his baby.
yeah.
One thing I found interesting, I guess, is the timing of the episode, because this is kind of a Carlos Castaneda trip. A few years before that book came out, I believe. The Teachings of Don Juan, is that the first one? I don't remember. I actually have read it, but it's been a while. Um, so it's before that. I feel like by 1965, the question would have been like, let's go on a spiritual journey, or let's do like self actualization. Whereas in this episode, it's like, can I develop psychic powers?
Well, that's what's so interesting about this episode being from early 1961, shot sometime in 1960, is that this is before the counterculture youth revolution. This is before drug culture becomes part of the pop culture. It's before, LSD and magic mushrooms and weed became just part of the way we talked about pop culture. Like, the Beatles and every big band that came after their, very public experimentation, so that it was just sort of accepted. This is primetime TV with this very straight-laced host and the people around him doing this deep dive. And it made me think about, like, how at one time Cary Grant talked a lot about doing LSD therapy, and it was under the sort of controlled clinical psychiatric context, but it was just like a thing that he did in the context of psychotherapy, and it wasn't connected to youth culture, hippie movement, drug culture, any of that. And here's this show that comes along that's doing, magic mushrooms and these trips before really any of that is sort of understood as pop culture. It was wild.
Well, keep in mind it was X at the time.
Yep.
So
Yep.
which I don't know. They could have left that name on it. Then Twitter would still be Twitter. Because X would have a different connotation. Well, yeah, I just
Yeah.
picked up the XTC CDs from the other house. So, one of those cases
Nice.
where the band gets intertwined with the substance now.
Yeah.
I'm into
Yeah.
XTC. Really? Which one do you mean? Weirdly, my daughter wanted to hear them. She found my Dukes of Stratosphere CD and noticed it said XTC, and now she wants to hear
Oh,
XTC.
wow.
So, yeah.
Okay. Cool.
14-year-old
Cool.
Japanese girl listening to XTC is a very strange thing.
It's great, man. It's great.
You can do that, though. Um, but I don't know. It is. I guess the goal is. I don't. It's not like John Newland's like a megalomaniacal, Bond villain where he's like, "Oh, I want to gain psychic powers," right? It's just like, "Hey, let's see what
No, no.
happens," which is also an interesting take here. Like, what
Yeah,
is he planning to do with that? I guess just make a TV show is his end goal. So,
I guess so. And again, it speaks to, this being a new drug. It speaks to this being um prior to recreational drug use being uh as popular as it was. Not to say that people didn't take drugs before, of course they did. But this is this odd thing where you've got this guy hosting a primetime TV show, and instead of the question being like, will this get me high? The question is, will I get powers from it? And can we scientifically verify that? So context is everything.
yeah, the scenes where he's tripping. I mean, you could tell he's a little weird, but that's not really the focus. It's not like, oh, that
No.
dude's out there. It's like, oh, does he have psychic powers? Can he
Right.
read the picture with his fingers now? So,
Yeah.
but
And those scenes are a bit intense, like, because you're in this little room and he's got the blindfold, and it feels like Oh man, it's sweaty in there. The tensions are high. How's he gonna do? They ratchet up that tension a bit in those scenes.
But you know, I like now living in Japan. I'm not finding substances and stuff, but you know, I'm usually looking for ways to reprogram my brain in fun ways. You know, so
Hmm.
what one thing I do have is a mind machine. Are you familiar with this?
No,
Oh,
what
hold on,
is
I
it?
grab it. It's on the other side of the
Okay,
room.
all right, dying to see.
It looks like a Walkman with a set of glasses. So
What?
yeah.
Oh wait, I think I've heard about
What's one of these guys?
these.
Yeah, yeah. It's got a set of LED
Okay,
lights.
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
close
yeah,
your
yeah.
eyes and you flash, and yeah, you do start seeing like geometric patterns and stuff like properly, you know?
That's
So
cool. That
it
sounds fun.
it is
Yeah.
fun.
It's not an e-meter. We know that.
Right, right.
No, okay. Okay.
It's not trying to rate anything. It is supposed to be a meditation machine. If the ads are lying, it's like, oh, this will give you like, like 30 years like meditating like a Tibetan monk. No, it won't. But you
Yeah, no,
will.
no, 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 no.
But it will give you trippy visuals behind your eyelids, which is fun, and it has the
That's cool.
binaural beats in the headphones. So
Yeah, which you've been producing.
right, that might be where I like
Yeah.
started to get into that thing.
Have you tried
Because
to do have you matched up your own binaural beats with the with the glasses?
yes, but I tend to use the ones on the machine because it's synced with the lights,
Got it. Yeah.
which is kind of
Yeah.
fun. So
That
I'm
makes
more
sense.
likely to play different music over it. That's maybe not, you know, binaural. But yeah, you can choose the program. There's relaxing ones where it's like very slowly shifting. You can choose a crazy one where you're going to see like different insane patterns every 2 seconds, that sort of thing. So,
Right, right.
but again, that's my goal. That's not the goal of for the sacred mushroom. It's like, can I read your mind? Which I have zero interest in. I don't think I'd like to read people's minds. You know?
No, no, that would be. But again, think about the context, think about the time. This is when that sort of thing has always been interesting. But we also had, government programs trying to explore, like, can can we think of psychic powers as something that we have in our arsenal? Can we have, projected mind reading at a distance so we can see what those Soviet communists are doing? So money's going into this, and this is a legitimate area of research, quote unquote legitimate. Is getting the attention because it's kind of new.
Yeah, for sure. I do want to talk a little bit about the documentary aspect of this. One of the clips I sent you before was Louis Buñuel's Land Without Bread. I don't remember what the title is in Spanish or French, but yeah, where
Yeah.
he went to a village and in the mountains of Spain, shot a bunch of actual documentary footage, and proceeded to write lies for
Yeah.
everything you're seeing and make it as horrible as possible. And when
Yeah.
they go into the more rural parts of Mexico, I felt that vibe a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. Um, hmm. There is a bit of that. There is a bit of the othering of that area, and I guess the exoticism of taking cameras into this place that most people don't get to see. Now, the thing about the movie that you shared with me, that documentary Land Without Bread, reading a little more, like, apparently there were some truly disturbing and problematic things happening there, and because they were so isolated in that village, yeah, there are things that by most standards of measure we would look at and go, ooh, like, maybe they would do well with some better standards of education and medical care. Like,
Yeah.
that's that's not in question. But definitely there is an exoticism to this, and I look at the time, it's 1960, and there we are advanced enough and taking cameras to enough places that you can kind of share the world with the TV audience, and at the same time it's like you're trying to find what is that next place that has never been discovered and put on camera and shared to, a suburban audience sitting at home watching TV. So I get the inspiration, but also you need to treat that with a very delicate hand.
Yeah, I wrote down John Newland's cringe line in this one. Right after they introduced the translator, he says, "This is the only man in the world who speaks their language." I'm like, what about the villagers?
Yeah, right. Right.
They speak it.
Yeah, clearly.
I was going to point out one more documentary that does it better, although it is incomplete, which is the time that Sergei Eisenstein went to Hollywood for a bit. The Soviet Union decided to loan him out for a bit for whatever reason, and he did a bunch of footage for Que Viva Mexico, which is, I mean, think about something like Alexander Nevsky or Ivan Terrible, but in Mexican documentary form. That's what you get. That high contrast, lots of shadows. Very cool movie. That's another one I might watch, turn off the sound and play some music over. So
nice. Yeah.
So that's another recommendation. As I was searching the title, it is on YouTube. So
very cool.
Everything's on YouTube, I guess, if a conglomerate hasn't snatched up the rights as hard as they can, and some of those are still on YouTube.
Yeah, good. Thank goodness. Yeah.
There were, of course, the 2 sessions. There was the in the field, just like let's see what happens, and then there was like kind of the controlled one, which I thought, despite this being kind of like just a network 1960 TV show, that's an interesting, at least turn of the head to the scientific method as we try to dazzle you with these weird substances.
Yeah, it's not terrible in their respect that, again, you have to legitimize basically, we're going to go to Mexico and buy drugs and then come back and try them and put this on TV. So we need to legitimize that, first of all. But then, in the interest of showing an audience at least a very rudimentary idea of a scientifically controlled experience, or experiment, rather, both of those words apply, I have to hand it to him. Like at least it's leading the audience in the right direction, instead of just getting a completely anecdotal, like, well, I went to Mexico and I tried the magic mushrooms and here's how I felt. You can actually give it a little bit of context and a little bit of qualitative analysis.
Yeah, I mean, because 60 years down the line, it's like, hey, man, I'm going to like an ayahuasca retreat in Costa Rica or something, which I don't know that.
Right.
Well, that one doesn't appeal to me at all, because apparently it involves vomiting and pooping.
Yeah, I don't want any part of that.
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's cool, but that really turns me off. Yeah, I don't like that idea. And then you see lots of snakes. I'm not into that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't want that either. Yeah,
that's one thing I agree with Indiana Jones about.
Yeah, can I just go and have tiki drinks and call it a day?
Yeah. The most fun was for snake fear was, it was about 10 years ago. I'm taking care of my daughter at the countryside house, the other house I was mentioning, and there's like snakes in the gutters, and I'm like inside, like at the closed window, like my father-in-law is getting them out with a broom handle.
No, thank you, man. Snakes in the gutters, I'm not staying there ever again. No.
Oh yes, you would. It's a super nice 100-year-old traditional Japanese house.
Okay, well that sounds cool, but yeah.
Oh, 4 big tatami room. You can't throw that out the window. Shouldn't have windows if it's a completely traditional, but yeah, it is also a somewhat modern house. What was it? It didn't have proper plumbing until like 2008, so that was kind of
wow.
Yeah,
wow, interesting.
My one of my friends that visited was schooled as an archaeologist, and he found like a stone. He's like, oh geez, this is like a Edo 300 year ago basically corn or rice milling bowl that's just sitting by the side of the house. So cool stuff. Then that thing in 1960, yeah, so John Newland could have bumped up there and been like, I'm lost in the wild.
See, absolutely, you could. Yeah, if only the show had gone on more than 3 seasons.
There's one Steve Martin sketch I love. This is from his special Comedy Is Not Pretty, which I probably I taped that off TV when I was a kid, and I've probably seen that like 50 times. But it has him going through the jungle and running into like a bunch of like hippies, like
Yeah.
full on. The special's like 1983, and he's being very condescending, like
Right.
as
Right.
in kind of like a little, like this is the only person who speaks your language, condescending sort of thing. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that's a fun one.
Oh, I need to rewatch that. I see. I used to memorize all of Steve Martin albums, but I forgot that he had the TV special. Well, he did a lot of TV stuff during the height of his stand-up career. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the one that was a full sketch comedy one, and also has our recently departed Paul Rubens as a plutonium stealing terrorist. So that's kind of fun.
Nice. Nice. That's
Little
awesome.
bit part there.
Uh,
Just for my own amusement, I was thinking in the scene where they're doing the more scientific version, I would like to go back and just like replace the tester with Bill Murray, using AI or something.
for that opening, yeah, the Ghostbusters moment is hard to, yeah, hard to not make that connection. Yeah.
Right, right. So have you tested your psychic skills?
I remember doing that in like grade school. Um, having those cards that have the shapes on them, you
Right.
know. I forget what you call those, but everybody knows when they have like the star, the square, the wavy
Bill
lines,
Murray's
that
a
whole.
couple wavy lines.
Yeah,
Bill
exactly,
Murray's cards.
exactly. So I remember doing that when I was in grade school, and I don't, but I don't remember doing it under any kind of like really controlled atmosphere. Because I figured, if it had been really remarkable, then somebody would have told me. but as far as I know, nobody has truly like been off the scale as far as those tests go. So yeah, yeah,
Not a
I
high
haven't.
aspirating.
No. I'm not like from where
Gary
no man has
Lockwood.
gone before. Yeah, yeah,
I don't remember the guy.
exactly.
Gary Mitchell.
Gary Mitchell, Gary
Yeah.
Mitchell.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
See,
and
I hate when I should have.
Dr. Elizabeth Daner. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
I was
and
about
and
to
by the
say
way,
Sally Kellerman, so that's where my brain goes to the actor, I
right,
guess.
right. But and worth pointing out that, even in the best controlled scientific environments of doing that kind of thing, very famously, if anybody out there looks up, Project Alpha, that was Banachek, who at the time, very young, he's a mentalist, magician, performer, and I think he's probably like in his 50s now or early 60s, but at the time he was just this kid who was really, really good at doing a mentalist act, right? And he got in touch with James Randi from the James Randi Educational Foundation, and said, hey, I'm good at these things. If I'd like to collaborate, if you want to, kind of put me to use. And Randy had this great idea of saying like, okay, look, I'm not going to train you because you already do these things well on your own, but there is a prestigious ESP test going on or being developed by some major institution. Why don't you go be a part of it? And the whole gimmick was that Randy and Banachek knew that Banachek was so good at doing his mentalist act that he could fool the experts. And that was the whole thing. He went in there and he participated in this test and fooled all the experts under these very rigorous clinical conditions. Like we're going to do this, and this will be the ultimate test to see if ESP exists. And we can't be fooled because we're scientists, damn it. And this kid goes in there and fools them all, and then has to reveal at the end, like, yeah, your test is crap. Here's how I beat it. Really interesting stuff if you look up Project Alpha. And that was a while back. I mean, that was like 40 years ago or something. But give it a look if you're interested in how these studies work, but then also how they can be gamed.
Yeah, I've read a few books. I'm seeing here Steve Radin maybe has written a few books on that topic. I don't know if that's. I think Radin's the name at least, the last name at least. But yeah, he's done a few books and about that sort of thing. He's definitely like on the if not into the pseudoscience area on the line. But I like stuff on the line. I think that's interesting.
Yeah,
where it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
there is some science, but it is pretty wacky, and it's like, it's interesting. I don't want to be the person doing the research and make that my life, but I'm certainly happy to read a book about it.
Sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Things I
Exactly.
have currently. Hold on, I'm gonna grab my phone. Everything's on the other side of the room. I should like think more about practicalities. But I downloaded a few years ago just for funsies. This is good for an elevator or something. My phone here has the ESP trainer, which is
Oh
just, it looks like
yeah.
it's just four buttons, and
Right.
you press one. If you press the right one, it shows you a
Yeah.
nice picture. Oh,
Yeah.
well, I got the first one
Oh,
green.
nice.
I think I've gotten 10 out of 24 trials, like once, right?
Yeah.
Usually it's
Yeah.
going to be statistically normal, like you get 4 to 6, which is about right, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, see, and that's the thing. It's like understanding the difference between, what would indicate an actual, some movement on the needle here versus what is chance, because there is a range statistically that you can attribute to chance. And then what is just noise? What is just statistical noise you actually have to accommodate for when you're designing a study? And again, always keeping in mind that even a well-designed study might be gamed. So,
Yeah, I
yeah.
have my long running undocumented trials going on with my teaching, because
Ah, okay.
I do a game. I often do a game. It's like a very large tic tac toe. Like there's like 30 or 40 boxes, so all the students get a chance to play, and
Yeah.
just to put a little chance. I'm like, okay, you can do the number of a dice roll, right?
Uh-huh.
So with that and card games, when I play with the kids, I'm usually like trying to lose. Especially the younger the student
Right.
is, the harder I'm trying to lose. But I've built the game on chance, so I'm like kind of trying to mentally affect the results. Just like, oh, I
Yeah.
really want this kid to win. uh Sometimes when we're rolling the dice, every time the kid rolls the dice, I'll just shout out a number,
Yeah.
which,
Yeah.
of course usually it's wrong, but I think it was 2 or 3 weeks ago I got like six correct in a row, and the kids' minds were just shattering. So again, what was
Yeah.
I doing? A good mentalist act. But and then
Yep.
card games. And you do start to wonder a little bit, because those seem to be a little more like I can let the kids win. I'm like, I wonder if my hands are like unconsciously doing something when I shuffle the cards, because I'm trying to
Right.
lose, you
Sure.
know? There could
Sure.
be,
Sure.
I mean, that's more impressive, where we have like these under the hood mental processes that we don't notice. For example,
Right.
when you start a sentence, you don't know how it's going to end, but you get there.
Right. Right.
As I was saying that sentence, I was saying, where is the sentence going? I don't know, but it got there. Don't think about
Yeah.
too hard, or you'll lose the ability to talk. But
Yeah. Yeah. But no, but that is an interesting psychological phenomenon. Is that, yeah, our brains are very often preemptively making those decisions before we are aware of those decisions being made, and that's kind of cool.
and the other ones with the older students, maybe I'm playing a little bit less games, but I'm asking them more questions, or having them ask me questions. And I'm always, they're not native English speakers. It takes some 5 second delay, and I'm like usually guessing what the response is going to be. And
Hmm.
80% of the time, I'm correct. That's more experience, of course. But
Yeah.
and
Right. Right. Right.
some
Right.
students that aren't so imaginative, but like I just know what they're gonna say, but it feels psychic.
Right. Right.
Once or twice, I did answer the question before they asked it, but that's probably because they asked it the previous week, right?
Yeah. Well, true. True.
So,
Yeah.
but you mentioned your cards in grade school. I'm curious if I'm just crazy, or if you do any of those sort of just little tests on your own in everyday life.
Yeah, I can't think that I have, but now you've got me intrigued with this app, so I might have to give that a shot,
It's a
you
perfect
know?
elevator app.
Yeah, right, right, yeah. Yeah,
It's
because I rarely play games on my phone anymore, but I something like that might actually that might be kind of stimulating. Might give that a
yeah.
shot. Yeah.
Only kills a minute of your time. After two sets of trials, you're usually probably finished for the time being. But
Right, right, exactly. Yeah.
it is interesting that part of the conceit of that program is the nice picture will maybe sharpen your ability to want to see more nice pictures. So your ESP will kick in and you'll hit the correct one because you want it. It's like the Pavlovian dog thing, right?
True. Right. Yeah.
I was about to say I'm way off topic, but I guess I'm pretty much dead on topic except for the mushroom part. So, um,
But how soon after this episode did the scientific community and just the public at large realize, like, oh, these mushrooms, they get you high. That's what's going on here. I'm curious how, because according to the show, if we take the show uh, at its word and being serious, they say that this thing only got discovered weeks ago. Like it is so new, and they're
not
on
by the
top of it.
villagers.
Yeah, right. The villagers knew, right? But by the outside world. So if we take them at their word, okay, they're there to legitimately investigate this thing. But what is it? Weeks, months, years after that, the rest of the scientific community was like, no. This is just another way for people to get high, and that's fine. People, human beings, will find all sorts of ways to get high, but that's what's going on here.
I'm just bringing up. Okay, actually, I was just looking up Carlos Castaneda's The Teachings of Don Juan is not until 1968. So this is actually way ahead of that. I thought that book came out in 62, where Castaneda, the his controversy is he went down, uh, did just like John Newland said, I'm doing anthropology, but kind of made stuff up, you know? Like
Right.
Don Juan is probably not a real person. I mean, he might have seen things, gotten things, and just kind of collated it into this experience. It is a fun read, especially if you read it as like weird 60s science fiction, you know?
Yeah.
That's also why I've read the Zachariah Stitchin books with Nibiru and stuff, because it reads as great science fiction.
Right. Right.
Rapturing, you know. Not
Right.
not really into the whole well, I am into the Anunnaki idea, just not as a real thing, but as a Stargate concept, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Ha- have you heard of speaking of which, while we're on psychic stuff, have you heard of a Project Stargate?
No, I don't know anything about it. What is that?
Okay, this is
That's not another spinoff series, is it?
no, no,
Stargate
no.
Atlantis, Stargate Universe, Project Stargate.
I think this predates the TV show, or maybe they named it after. I don't remember, but it's supposed to be one of those CIA things, a little less insidious than some of the other ones. But the idea was they would have remote viewers. So in the Cold War, they
Okay, yeah.
CIA is like, if you can remote view, we want you to, let's say, remote view into the Kremlin and see what's there. We want you to
Right.
remote view to Mars and see what's there that our probes can't catch.
Okay.
That
So
sort of thing.
I didn't know that was the name of that, but yes, that's what I was thinking of when earlier in the discussion, thinking about like this being an area of study. I'm gonna guess that it didn't actually work out.
I don't know. The Cold War ended.
So that's it. That's all the proof we need right there.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with
Yeah.
confirmation bias.
Yeah.
Although it's not the best CIA project name, which I just like to say as often as possible, is Operation Midnight Climax, where they would give
Wow. All right.
in a Nevada brothel, they would dose the well, I think they'd send people they wanted to get dirt on, and just as
Yeah.
do experiment to dose businessmen with LSD, and watch see what goes on from behind a two-way mirror.
Yeah, right.
But
Oh,
best
that's
best name ever, Operation Midnight Climax. That's
hey,
just fantastic. That's my
great
favorite.
work if you can get it.
Do you want to toss out any other observations on this documentary, or riff off of it as I have been?
No, I mean, I think we hit all the major points because it's really this thing told in two halves. The first half being the trip to Mexico, and then what they film in this village and getting some of the immediate reactions while they're there, and then coming back to the controlled study environment. And it is like, look, for the pretense of TV and the pretense of the kind of story that they're trying to tell, I feel like you kind of have to land at this place at the end where they leave the audience with this question in their mind, like, whoa, his scores got better at the end. Maybe there's something to this drug. Like, you have to leave the show like that. And as I mentioned before, they do give you at least a little taste of this being a scientific, quote unquote, study that they're doing, at least a controlled study. But at the end of the day, it really isn't. You know, there are holes in that. But I think this show, it very effectively does what it sets out to do. It very effectively does this thing of like taking you to an exotic location, introducing this very wild concept for a suburban TV audience, and then leaves them wondering at the end, like, whoa, are we seeing the next step in some, you know, incredible mental breakthrough because of this magical fungus that grows somewhere in Mexico? Like, I think that all makes for very good TV, even though this is kind of low budget TV, a little square, a little dry, but that's all right. And I love, still, I cannot get over how interesting this is that it comes out in 1961. This is, it's before everything. It's before the Beatles. It's before drug culture just works its way into popular music and TV. Damn it, it's before Sid and Marty Krofft. It's before people could sit there and just, you know, watch Drugs Without Drugs on their TV screen by tuning into any of their shows.
No, I was on a podcast yesterday, and I brought up Lidsville, and the other two on the podcast were like, no, you're making that up. That's not real. I was like, look it up. It's real.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a thing. That being my favorite Sid and Marty Krofft intro. Because that's the thing. You sit down and just watch the intros to all the shows, and you're probably good.
Yeah, right.
Or time travel back to the world of Sid and Marty Krofft, which is now CNN. So
Yeah.
that's some fun. The author, as mentioned earlier, is Dr. Dean Radin. He's written books such as Entangled Minds and Real Magic. But he has worked at University of Edinburgh, University of Nevada. And you know what? A few years ago, when I used to do the oral hygiene podcast, I actually talked to the spirit molecule guy, AMT Strasberg. Or am I thinking of hold on, let me find his name and make sure I got it right. Strassman, Rick Strassman. Yeah. I did an interview with him where I think in the about 20, 30 years ago, he did controlled DMT studies at in his University of New Mexico, Arizona, something like that. It's been a few years since I did the interview, but and he never did it himself. He was trying to keep it as clinical as possible, and just for, you know, report what kind of experiences they were having. He wasn't looking for psychic powers in that case, but yeah, and just, you know, the consistencies of what these people would come back and tell him. So
right.
So that was pretty. Yeah, there's a documentary on that. There's a book on that. And hey, I did an interview with him. If you go back to the oral hygiene archives.
Yeah, cool, very cool.
So it is interesting. It's interesting what you can become fascinated with without necessarily buying into.
Yeah, right. No, exactly. Yeah. I am not I'm not a heavy user of psychedelic drugs. And I am also not one who really gives a lot of credence to claims of ESP or psychic powers. But I think this show was fascinating. And then you sent me a link to Roger Corman's The Trip, which I think is the very clear and logical kind of other end of the spectrum of a show like this, because then it's 1967. Then it's just like a lot of people who have figured out how to get high. And that is the only thing they're looking for. They don't they've completely dropped the pretense of looking for ESP powers. And that's just like a crazy psychedelic trip of a movie, and I love it.
A little more of a Corman thing, because Corman, as we were talking before, is a pretty like mild mannered,
Hmm.
seemingly straight faced fellow.
Yep.
He did his research for the trip. So
Yeah, I read that he actually did that. Everybody did, of course.
except for Bruce Stern, who
Yeah, yeah. Not
is
not hard to believe that Peter Fonda and Dennis
Dennis
Hopper.
Hopper, they were like, we're
Of
doing this
course
for
they did.
research.
Yeah, sure, sure. Yeah, write that off on the film's budget. But yeah, Roger Corman did as well, and I think that's great.
It actually blows my mind how much of a teetotaler Bruce Stern supposedly was, whatever, because he was totally in that scene. But he just said,
Yeah,
nah,
yeah,
that's not
yeah,
for me. So,
yeah.
in Japan, things are very illegal in Japan. So I got my mind machine. I know meditation techniques. I have my own experiences. Like the one thing where Newland maybe missed the point was looking for these psychic abilities, because even if it's all in your head's an experience, right?
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
So if I have profound spiritual things through meditation or mind machine or even through the magic mushroom, I mean, how much does that actually apply? But how much does it apply to my mental state completely? I had the
Right,
experience.
right,
It's now part of my life, that sort of thing. So
right,
um
right.
preaching about it, I guess, is the problem. Just I don't know. One thing I think living in Japan has really kind of helped me with is you really don't share your opinion unless you need to.
Oh, interesting.
I mean, how much could Americans use that these days?
Wow.
Because
Huh.
in Japan, people do not want to have conflict. They don't even want to disagree with each other about an opinion, right? So
Yeah, yeah,
on
yeah.
the downside, that means the same political party has basically been in power since 1945, except for maybe 3 years somewhere in there. But yeah. So there's a downside to it too. There's no political discourse, right?
Interesting.
The headline news yesterday was Prime Minister Kishida has 5 women on his 19-person cabinet for a record. It's like,
Man.
that's not a
Wow.
great stat, man. And that's the
Wow.
record in Japan. Yeah. And I looked at the ages, and one of the ladies is 44. There's a couple people in their 50s. Everyone else is 65 and up. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and in Japan, there's the Oji-san, even older leaders. They've retired from actual office, but they still are respected. They still wield the power. So the elder statesmen in Japan are actually calling the shots still.
Hmm. Damn. So wait, so where is the appropriate place for dissent and discourse then?
That's why I'm getting at. Like,
Okay,
if
okay,
no one wants
okay.
to share an opinion, and
Yeah.
Japan Inc. and the government is that solidified in their ways,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
things change very slowly in Japan. So,
Wow. Wow.
but I mean, again, things have been changing very quickly in America. So,
Yeah, yeah.
who knows
Holy
what the
cow.
correct place is? This one's going to be weird. I rephrased my questions a little bit for One Step Beyond, and now we have One Step Beyond that's completely out of format. So, who in this episode took the step beyond?
Yeah, I mean, look, again, all respect to John Newland. He puts himself out there and like he takes this as yet untested drug twice because they do it in the village and then he comes back and does it at his office. And he absolutely puts his money where his mouth is. He throws himself into the experiment. Uh, Good on him. Like I wouldn't always recommend that, you know, but good for him. He took that step. He took that step twice.
Yeah, two steps beyond.
Yeah, he did.
So, yeah, I mean, there's really no one else in this episode to bring up because he's,
Hmm.
the narrator the whole time. He's doing it. So,
Yeah, well, and there's the other guys who go on that initial trip to the village with him, and they cut to the natural sound, and the guy's laughing, and like there's those guys are high as hell too, but
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, they
yeah,
took the one step beyond, not the two steps beyond.
yeah,
So,
exactly, exactly.
and
We,
it
we
is
don't get a whole lot of detail after that about them.
and then yeah, it is fun to watch guys psychedelically tripping in full 50s style with the horn rimmed glasses and flannels and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, right.
That's good. The question I usually ask second is, do they deserve their experience? He's asking for it. He's making a show on it. He's doing it as hard as he can. So I don't know if
Yeah,
this is
yeah.
even a question in this case, unless you want to comment.
No.
Okay, then let's go straight to the tripometer. 0 is not
Yeah.
trippy. 5 is extremely trippy. Where do you want to put this one?
Well, so that's a weird thing. Like, this is not trippy in the way that, the Twilight Zone wants to mess with your head, or one of the stories that's a little more like supernatural, like a supernatural mystery that the show is trying to investigate. It's not trippy in that respect. In fact, it is very straight laced. It's very square. It's just like, here's this thing. We're going to test it out. We're going to see if we can test it again and get some interesting results about ESP. So it's a trippy idea, but they handle it in such a just straightforward clinical way. I think this is like a 2, because as an audience member, I don't come away from it going, wow, they just blew my mind. I come away from it going like, oh, this is an interesting preliminary bit of research into a drug that they don't understand, which is cool.
I'm gonna go all the way to 5, and I'm gonna use actually
Oh,
one of your podcast co-hosts point to make that 5, which
okay.
I can segue this into your plug if you want. But Earl Green on last week's genealogy was talking about how the context of a television show is important. What was in the news that week? What
Yeah,
what
yeah,
aired on that station before and after? What was on the other stations? This
yeah.
is the weirdest bit of TV, before 70s variety specials, So
It is, but again, this is like, it is weird and daring that they actually go there and they take this drug that they don't understand and they want to see what it'll do. That is weird and trippy, and I agree with that. That's like a 10 out of 5. Just the fact that they would do it, because nothing else like that is happening. But they do it in such a way that is so like, they're not trying to scare the audience. This isn't like watching a late 60s, early 70s, educational movie about how you should be afraid of all drugs. It's not like a 1930s reefer madness or anything like that. It is just so straight laced that I I don't know. Like I want to get into the heads of the production staff of when they decided to make this show and when they actually took these drugs. Like, did they get it? And did they just go like, wow, we all got super high. How are we going to package this for TV?
do it
Or
again.
do it again. um, or did they all were they all sort of buying their own hype? Like, oh no, this isn't recreational, this isn't a drug, this is something that truly will unlock the potential of the human mind. Like, were they buying that from their own narrative? I would love to know.
That's one of the things that trips me out for the tripometer is they don't even have the vocabulary to talk about it in 1960, right? That hasn't,
Yeah,
like we
yeah.
said, hasn't entered the vernacular yet. And again, the context, it's like, so you're going to watch this and now here's the beaver.
Yeah, right.
So when you place it in context, it's like, what is this doing there? That's so weird. Whereas a regular episode of One Step Beyond or a Twilight Zone, it's like, yeah, that was pretty weird, but it's narrative TV. It fits in. And this is like, and in the context of the show, it's like, whoa, we're doing this week. What's happening?
Yeah, yeah.
So because of the context, I'm willing to bump to actually go, yeah, to my highest tripometer rating. But
Nice,
yeah.
I love it.
Anyway, like I said, I guess we could segue. I just mentioned genealogy if you want to tell the folks about that and some other mission log stuff.
Yeah, very well done. You're a pro like that. Yeah, so mission log, the regular mission log where we discuss episode by episode every Star Trek ever made, that is on hiatus at the moment because we are standing in solidarity with the SAG and WGA creatives who are on strike. And in the meantime, we are filling in with a show that is fascinating, I think. As of this recording that you and I are doing, our very first regular episode will go out tomorrow, and that is covering the first script sale that Gene Roddenberry made professionally to television. He wrote just, a bunch of dramatic like cop shows, and this is Mr. District Attorney. He wrote 6 of those. The first one of our discussion drops tomorrow. And it's so cool. You get to go back to the beginning of his career. We're able to do this because these are shows that are not readily available on streaming or a home video purchase. So very much like you pivoting and doing some different stuff during the strike. That's what we're doing. And I hope everybody listens to it. It's in the regular Mission Log feed. So missionlogpodcast.com, or go to your podcatcher of choice and just type in Mission Log and you'll get it. It'll show up for you. And then when the regular Mission Log comes back, we'll move this over to its own feed. And it is Gene-ology. So GENE-ology. And I love what Earl and Norman have been doing. Like you said, just putting it all into context. Like, what else was on TV? What was in the news? Why are we talking about early 1950s TV writing? And what does that reveal about Gene Roddenberry's career later on?
All right. As for this one, it's Time Enough podcast, and yeah, we're doing the One Step Beyond for the reasons you just mentioned, and we will return to the Twilight Zone before too long, with the added context of this show. I think probably making our look into the Twilight Zone a little stronger when we get back to it. So
nice,
you can support us on Patreon at Podcastius, where we also talk about the top 100 and bottom 100 movies on IMDb at Films and Filth. Though at the moment, we're also going off the track and talking about weird stuff, and October is going to get even weirder with non-Hollywood horror films. So
nice.
Here's a Call It Disney, where we talk about the weird side Disney. And yes. Just premiering on my side is Podcast 1999, where you've already been on the 3rd episode, Black Sun, which we recorded some time ago, but the first episode of that just dropped. So
happy breakaway day, September 13th.
Right on. It's actually the 14th here now, sorry, but
oh, that's right, you're in the future. I forgot.
Yeah. I'm getting that episode you mentioned today. I was confused for a second.
Yeah.
But we're getting into that. I'm already slightly regretting, impressed by my theme song. That's what happens when you come home after a drinking party and make your put together your podcast stuff.
Nice. So. Yeah, I hear you.
Okay, off on a trip with the sacred mushroom, right into the sky, man. Like all shaman, they went back to the sky. I'll cut there.
Awesome.
Did you catch? Do you know that quote? Like all shaman, they went back to the sky.
I don't. What is that from?
That's The Men Who Stare at Goats, which is a fantastic movie.
Of course, yes.
Nice. I think it's I don't remember who says it, but yeah, I love that movie.
That is awesome.
This actually I'll be releasing this on your Sunday, so it's a pretty short.
Okay. Oh, right on. Yeah.
And then I think I got at least 3 more One Steps Beyond coming after that, and I'll probably when the strike finishes, I'll definitely be contacting you, because when we get back to the proper list, it's Toy Story, and then The Love Guru is the next week. So
yes. I can't wait.
What is that? I'm doing this as a mental exercise of trying to think of what our horror films are. I chose 2000 Maniacs, Herschel Gordon Lewis's 2000 Maniacs.
Yes.
What else? I think Mark went with a Argento, 1985. Jennifer Connelly, directed by Argento. I can't remember the name, but that movie. Possession, maybe? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Is it? Okay.
Luke's going with the 70s luchador film. So and then my university girlfriend keeps trying to get me to talk to this guy that made a movie. So I contacted him, and we'll talk about his East Coast independent comedy horror. So
cool. I think I'm thinking of a Polish Vampire in Burbank. That's a classic, homegrown, low budget, shot on video, um, comedy horror, but actually got legs. Like it stuck around for a while, became kind of a cult hit. Eddie Deason is in it. I would recommend looking that one up. Might be
Okay,
just
maybe. Well, yeah, I took the last tip, so maybe I'll check that out
yeah,
too. Especially
yeah,
if we need to keep on
exactly,
jugling for a bit.
exactly.
So
Yeah,
what
yeah.
was the one? Freaky Farley is the name of the movie. The guy apparently has been on Fallon a few times. I guess he's not as a
Huh.
song. He's something like he has like. Actually, now I need to look it up, especially since I'm talking to him next week. But
Yeah.
uh, Matt Farley is the guy's name. Released more than 23,000 songs as of February
Whoa, whoa.
2023.
Holy crap, dude.
What is it? He discovered songs with silly titles from his band were the only ones generating revenue. So just targeted that and wrote short songs. So according to Farley, one song that contains only the word poop repeated over and over generates 500 in streaming revenue every month, likely in part because children requested from Alexa.
Man. Ah.
So I don't know. Yeah, I guess that should make things interesting. Performed used to
Yeah.
be a Pizza Hut on Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon. Okay, who was recently under some. That's sorry if you need to go. I'm just rambling now, but
No,
that
no, no,
that
no. This is
Fallon thing's
interesting.
pretty. That's weird. I
Yeah.
was just thinking in the '60s, it'd be like, yeah, he's the boss. That's what happens. And
Right, right, right. Yeah, but now it actually is a thing, which is good. People should be called out for their bad behavior. But then you always wonder, it's like particularly in creative worlds, there is already kind of a high bar of tolerance for people's bad behavior because you're dealing with temperamental creatives. But for Fallon to have cultivated this image of being the nice guy, I feel like it must have been really bad. Like all of his bad behavior must have been really beyond the pale.
and I have a weird perspective on this one because I've never seen his show. Right, a few
Oh,
months
I've seen just pieces of it, but yes, yeah,
I barely seen pieces of it. I saw the
yeah.
Saved by the Bell reunion because of course I did. I saw
Okay,
that.
yeah, 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 yeah.
I saw that, and a few months ago I watched a ride through video of the race through New York. Right, so
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's
yeah.
all I know about Jimmy on TV. But in university, I was the vice president of our university union, so I'd often have to like shuttle the talent around, take them to dinner, blah blah blah. So I
Okay.
actually did spend like a whole day with Jimmy Fallon.
Wow. Holy shit.
And I don't know what his
And
public persona is. Like I didn't see much SNL he's
interesting.
on. I mean, so and
Huh.
he was fine. I mean, he was chatty enough, but he wasn't like manic or anything, of course. But he was just
Right, right, right.
normal dude, right?
Yeah.
I guess he was having a good Jimmy day because he was, of course,
Right.
I had no problem with him. The people that were on our university's wall of shame were Bill Maher, which is now not surprising at all. And Greg
Right.
Louganis was on the wall of shame,
Oh,
and
wow. Wow.
Medeski, Martin, and Wood, not the band themselves, but their manager. Their manager was just like a prima donna piece of shit.
Wow, that's hilarious.
Yeah, yeah. So they were on our. We actually in the back closet had a wall of shame with their pictures physically there. So
Oh man, that's funny.
okay, I guess I'll stop my ramblings and start getting ready for work. But yeah, like I said, this one
Yeah,
will
you're
be
just
out.
starting your day. Yeah.
Yep, yep. So have a groovy one. As always, thanks for jumping in and
Thank you, man,
yep.
for sharing this weird show with me that I may have never discovered on my own. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's pretty
Oh, and
great.
sorry, just really quick before I hang up. Let me look
Hmm.
at the Space 1999 list. I think you're a little bit down on it for the next one, but I actually had to do the last episode. Mark is recovering, but he's been a week in the hospital with pancreatitis.
What? No. Oh, holy crap, dude.
So
Wow.
the last
Doing all right?
Captain Mike was coming on, and it actually is just me and Captain Mike. So
Oh, okay. Cool.
and yeah, but he says he's going to be back on with us next week, so that should be cool.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, it's a little while before I actually need to bug you about that. The next one you're listed for is a February 24th release. So no rush.
Great. Yeah. So we got a little time. Yeah.
Just wanted to look while I was there,
Yeah.
and try and not be annoying with them fighting people.
Yeah.
I'm very happy that you and some other folks are regulars, but I don't want to be annoying. So
yeah. Never to repeat yourself too much. Yeah.
okay, have a good one.
Awesome, man.